What kind of building tries to touch the heavens? What if glass, stone, and silence could speak to God? This is not just architecture. This is theology carved in limestone. This is the story of Gothic architecture, where art met empire and light became divine. The year is 1050. Europe is finally beginning to breathe again. The Viking raids that once shattered monasteries are fading. The church is rising. Kings consolidate power, trade returns, culture awakens, and everywhere people build. But they build like it's still wartime. The Romanesque style dominates. Thick stone walls, tiny windows, fortress-like churches that seem more afraid than faithful. These early cathedrals are built to defend, not to inspire. But all of that is about to change. Just outside Paris stands a church that changed the world, the Basilica of Saint-Denis. In the mid-12th century, one man reimagined how a church could speak to the soul. His name was ABBOT SUGER, a theologian, political advisor, and visionary. To Suger, light was not just beauty, it was divinity itself. He believed churches should not just shelter believers, but uplift them. So he commissioned architects to do the unthinkable: make walls thinner, make windows larger, make stone fly. And they did. With pointed arches, ribbed vaults, and flying buttresses, Saint-Denis became the first truly Gothic building, and it sparked a revolution. Gothic cathedrals were sermons in stone. Every line had meaning. The vertical thrust, toward heaven, the stained glass windows, bathing worshippers in divine light, the pointed arch, directing the eye and soul upward. Flying buttresses weren't just engineering marvels. They made it possible to build taller, holier spaces, to fill churches with glass, not gloom. Inside, ribbed vaults danced across ceilings like spiderwebs of grace. Every detail, from the gargoyle to the column, was a theological metaphor, and all of it worked. People walked into these churches and felt heaven close. Soon Gothic exploded across France. Chartres Cathedral with its kaleidoscope of stained glass. Notre-Dame de Paris, begun in 1163, a cathedral so iconic it became the soul of a nation. Reims, where French kings were crowned beneath its sacred arches. Each cathedral took decades, sometimes centuries, to complete. They were the internet of their time, hubs of knowledge, economy, and power. And they weren't just French. The Gothic tide was rising across Europe. In England, the Gothic style took on a horizontal grace, seen in Canterbury and Salisbury. In Germany, it stretched skyward, culminating in the towering Cologne Cathedral. In Spain, Gothic met Islamic art, creating exquisite hybrids like Seville Cathedral. Italy, ever rebellious, preferred Romanesque, but even Florence couldn't resist Gothic drama. These weren't just churches, they were civic centers, political theaters, symbols of rising cities, and above all, declarations of faith and dominance. Because to build Gothic was to say, we are rich, we are united, and God is on our side. Fast forward to the 1800s. Europe's empires are expanding. Britain rules India, France carves into Africa, and once again, Gothic returns. Only this time as a symbol of empire. Victorian Britain loved the Gothic. It represented Christian roots and national pride. So colonial cities were dressed in stone lace. In India, St. Paul's Cathedral, Calcutta, and the University of Mumbai rise with neo-Gothic spires. In Senegal, Dakar Cathedral, a French fusion of faith and control. To build Gothic in the colonies was to say, this is civilization. But the locals weren't just passive viewers. They added their own artistry. Out of empire came unexpected beauty. In India, Gothic mixed with Mughal domes, creating Indo-Gothic marvels. In Egypt and Morocco, arches and calligraphy blended with stained glass and rib vaults. Even the materials changed. Red sandstone, local wood, Islamic geometry. These weren't just copies. They were adaptations. Gothic reborn through different eyes. Colonial power tried to use architecture to dominate, but architecture always speaks in two directions. It reflects as much as it imposes. Why did Gothic matter so much? Because it wasn't just a style, it was a worldview. In a time when most couldn't read, a cathedral taught. The rose window told the story of Genesis. The gargoyles warned of sin. The nave's proportions mirrored divine order. To walk into a Gothic cathedral was to feel judged and forgiven. Heaven wasn't somewhere far away. It was here, in glass, in stone, in silence. By the 16th century, the Renaissance arrived, with new rules, symmetry, and classical revival. Gothic was seen as outdated, barbaric even. But it never vanished. In the 19th century, Gothic made a roaring comeback. Writers like Victor Hugo revived interest with The Hunchback of Notre-Dame. Architects rebuilt, reimagined. In Britain, Gothic revival became state style. In America, it defined churches and Ivy League halls. Why? Because Gothic spoke to the soul. Again. Today, Gothic is both sacred and spooky. We see it in horror films, haunted castles, Batman's Gotham. But its roots are deeper, in divine ambition and collective effort. No cathedral was built by one man. Thousands of hands shaped every stone. Generations dreamed a single dream of light, faith, and eternity. And that is Gothic. More than an era, it was Europe's soul, set in stone. From the spires of Notre-Dame to the domes of Mumbai, Gothic tells a story of beauty, belief, and empire. It began as a prayer in France and echoed across continents. But the question remains, was it just architecture or a glimpse into the divine? Subscribe for more untold stories from the shadows of history where myth, stone, and power collide.